Welcome to Narrative Nook Audio Tales, where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening. When Vivian heard about the matter regarding the exercise book, she thought of the instance she tossed the book onto the floor and could not help but to clench the sides of her skirt. She had no idea if Nicole had come to complain or not. Seeing that she remained silent, Ms. Emerson continued, "Your neighbor, Oliver, is usually calm and collected. He was worried about it, so he came to tell me that you were in a bad mood and hoped that I could counsel you, but you came here looking for me before I did." When Vivian heard this, her eyes widened. My neighbor, that meek Oliver, actually came to Ms. Emerson to talk about me, she thought. Seeing her shocked look, Ms. Emerson looked up and sighed, "Vivian, I have high hopes for you too, don't let me down, okay?" Vivian nodded as if she was in a trance as she left the office. Yet, the entirety of her attention was affixed to that word. Who else does Ms. Emerson has high hopes for? Nicole. As she thought of this, her chest felt like it was about to explode. What right does Nicole have to be on equal footing with me in Ms. Emerson's eyes? She hissed to herself. Nicole has both a lousy attitude and grades, so what does she have to compare with me? When Vivian got back to class, she immediately questioned Oliver with her eyes red. "Oliver, why did you snitch on me to Ms. Emerson? Don't you know that's shameless of you?" The moment Vivian heard about Ms. Emerson specifically mentioning Nicole's exercise book, she thought that it was Oliver who told Ms. Emerson that she was the one who did that, causing Ms. Emerson's attitude toward her to change. Vivian's neighbor looked at her at a loss. He was only worried about her and was too embarrassed to tell her directly, so he just briefly told Ms. Emerson that Vivian was in a poor mood and not much else. Seeing Vivian was about to cry, Oliver got even more anxious. He wanted to help her wipe her tears off, but she instead coldly took a step back as she glared at him. "You shameless cretin. Stay away from me." Oliver's hand froze in midair as a bitter smile appeared on his face. It was always like this, he thought. Her special fondness for Gary notwithstanding, she was always cold as frost toward him. He lowered his hand as he said somewhat softly, "Vivian, I'm sorry, I was just worried about you." Vivian sneered as she heard that. "Worried about me? You're so worried that you snitched on me to Ms. Emerson? Who needs your disgusting concern?" As she said that, she walked toward Nicole, her eyes aflame. It was because of this batch, she thought. If it weren't for her, Gary would not be acting like he had been bewitched, and I wouldn't be scolded by Ms. Emerson, who had always doted on me. All of this was because of Nicole. Seeing that Vivian had no intention to de-escalate things and instead walked toward her, Nicole's eyes grew colder. Oliver stood behind Vivian as he looked at her, turning away without as much as looking at him. As if sensing the gaze of everyone around him, he lightly clenched his fist. Vivian walked over to Nicole without saying anything as she immediately raised her hand to slap the latter. "You batch." She had already stretched her arm out, and if this slap landed on Nicole's face, it would definitely be a hard slap. Best if I can just ruin her pretty face, she viciously thought to herself. Everyone watched with bated breath at the scene. Vivian was their class rep and was very popular in class. Nicole must have done something to make her so angry. Almost everyone sided with Vivian. This is going to be a good slap, as Nicole had indeed caused much trouble for Class B. She was also so good at seducing men that she deserved this slap. A chill appeared in Nicole's eyes. She originally could not be bothered with Vivian, but the latter kept pushing her, challenging her limits. Seeing that her slap was about to land on Nicole's face, a flash of glee appeared in Vivian's eyes. Nicole not only did not dodge, but she simply just raised her left hand extremely quickly and grabbed Vivian's incoming right hand. Following a slothful raise on her eyebrow was a terrifying sharp glint in her eyes. "You want to learn how to slap? Let me teach you." Immediately after, Nicole casually raised her right hand as she struck Vivian's face like a bolt of lightning. Vivian wanted to block, but it was too late as she could only watch as the slap connected against her face with wide-opened eyes. Nicole did not look like she used any strength, and her hit did not look like it hurt much at all, yet Vivian's face swelled at speed visible to the naked eye, making her look like an inflated balloon, turning her originally pretty face hideous. Vivian still did not realize what had happened as she looked on disdainfully at Nicole. "And here I thought you were skilled. You are actually nothing." Just as she wanted to say something else, she found herself unable to open her mouth at all. A sudden pain then surged across her face. Although there was no damage on the skin, the inside had suffered serious damage. Vivian touched her face in disbelief. She wanted to scream, yet she could not find her voice. When she saw everyone looking at her strangely, especially Gary, who was seated at the back, also giving her a frown, Vivian covered her face with her hand in panic as she could no longer be bothered with Nicole and rushed out of the classroom. Upon seeing Vivian fleeing the classroom in panic, everyone looked at Nicole in fear. They never thought that she was that terrifying. Vivian had wanted to slap Nicole but got a perfect demonstration on herself instead. Nicole looked at Vivian's fleeing silhouette without many expressions, the chill in her eyes still lingering. She had controlled her strength well. This wound may look serious, but it only needed 3 days to heal. Vivian would most likely stop messing with her for a while after losing face before the entire class. That was a hard and memorable lesson Nicole had taught Vivian. After class, Nicole walked in the direction of the cafe. Her pace was not too fast, yet barely anyone could catch up to her. Her face was calm as if nothing could affect her. Just as she walked into an alley, her eyebrows frowned a little. Her surrounding was quiet, yet Nicole hissed coldly, "Show yourself." The other part did not seem to believe that Nicole had discovered him as he hid somewhere and did not move. A cold glint flashed past her eyes as she quickly turned around and kicked toward a corner not too far ahead of her. The wall shook violently, and the person hiding inside was so terrified he ran out. Nicole's speed was, however, faster than him as she quickly grabbed his arm and tugged it as her other hand moved forward and locked onto the person's throat. Just one fluid movement, she held the person in a deathlock. The man was shocked by her moves as he tried to use his hand to pry her hand away from his throat as if wanting to say something. Nicole noticed that this person's movement was quite random, and he did not seem like a person who knew martial arts at all. Who would send someone like this to kill her, she wondered. As she thought of that, she loosened her grip slightly, just enough to lock the person but still allowed the person to speak. "Speak. Who sent you?" The other party took a few deep breaths. Nicole's hand may be slender, but he could not free himself no matter how he tried. He had thought that Nicole was just a dour tech nerd and did not expect her to be so strong. Seeing that he did not speak, she faintly signaled that she was increasing the strength of her grip. He immediately blurted out, "Lucifer. Stop. It's me, Spectre." "Spectre?" Nicole was stunned for a moment, but she still did not loosen her grip. "What's your proof?" Spectre coughed a few times. Fearing that she might continue to hold him in this chokehold, he frantically said, "We have previously done a chain tracking of White from Macronia. 3 years ago, you tried to fix the technical loopholes of Hustruberg's space agency. And most recently, you tried to act against the Johnstons and almost compromised the J.J. Johnston Group's data vault, affecting their product launch, costing them $100 million. When Nicole heard all that, the suspicion in her heart slowly faded away. Indeed, only Spectre would know that she did all these. Seeing that Nicole was lowering her guard, Spectre cheekily quipped, "Lucifer, I made so much effort to run away from home to see you, and this is your meeting gift for me?" When Nicole heard this, she speechlessly twitched the corners of her mouth as she let him go. It was only when Spectre stood up straight and looked resentfully at her that Nicole realized that he looked younger than her, with a childlike baby face. Recalling what she had done with him thus far, Nicole felt a little conflicted. Is this person an adult? She wondered. Seemingly understanding her gaze, Spectre said irritably, "What are you looking at? I'm already 18. Don't think I don't know you were already in the business when you were 15. Nicole raised her eyebrows and motioned for him to continue speaking. Seeing her expression, Spectre realized what he had exposed, and his voice became softer and softer. "I didn't mean to look into your background, but someone had been tracking me down recently, and you were not online. I had no other way to contact you, so I thought of finding your real-world address." Nicole knew that he would not lie to her. Looking at his baby face and thinking of her seemingly mature partner on the internet, there was a disconcerting sense in her heart that she could not put to words. "But," Spectre looked at Nicole as he said seriously, "Lucifer, did you cross someone powerful or something? When they could not track you down, they started to track me instead. I'm not as skilled as you and almost got tracked down a few times." Thinking of her few nemesis, Nicole squinted a little, but she did not dwell on the topic as she said faintly, "Have you eaten yet?" Spectre immediately shook his head. He had sneaked out from home and ran all the way to Royal Creek Institute to squat with her. He had no time to eat at all. Nicole rolled her eyes at him as she slothfully said, "I'll take you out for a meal. We'll talk as we eat." The two walked on the path inside the Royal Creek Institute as Nicole recalled the grove that she was taken to previously. The place was both quiet and had good sound insulation. So, she decided to take Spectre there for a meal. Spectre had a very cute baby face, and when he kept quiet, there was a look of innocent deception. The taxi driver looked at the two a couple of times. At first, he was worried that Nicole was going to do something bad to Spectre, but when he saw Nicole's face, he was dumbfounded. "Ah, forget it. The girl is prettier than the boy. I don't have to worry," he thought. Along the way, Nicole observed Spectre, feeling that he was not interested in anything, nor was he looking at the bustling sights of San Giotto. She then had some thoughts inside her. After arriving at the place, Nicole took Spectre in. There were few people there at the time, so the two went to a private room on the second floor and ordered a few dishes before Nicole asked, "Come on, out with it. How did you find me?" Spectre looked at Nicole's somewhat close face as he then turned away and said somewhat squeamishly, "You're too close." Nicole paused for a moment before impassively shifting a little bit to the side before asking, "Better?" Spectre's ears were flushed red as he glanced at Nicole and said, "It's a hotel you once stayed at Nottingbrook State that probably required Real name registration. I found you using that name." Nottingbrook State? Nicole's expression changed a little. She did not expect the problem to occur there. She had always been cautious, but she had a high-difficulty mission back then, and she did not have the time to delete her personal information from the hotel's database after the mission was done. Thankfully, it was just a name. If Spectre was not her partner and had given him a second-level key to allow him some decryption ability against her IP, he would never have been able to follow her trail to the hotel and get her name. But even so, she still had to go to Nottingbrook State. Spectre was no stranger to Nicole's caution, and the moment he saw her expression he said, "You're going to Nottingbrook State, right? Take me with you." Nicole glanced at him. She had always worked alone. Plus, bringing a kid along is nothing but trouble. She then said impassively, "Not bringing a kid along. Too much trouble." Spectre was so pissed he stopped eating. "You are the same age as me, just 2 months older. I don't care. If you don't take me along, I'll sell your information to H. He is looking for you across the whole world." As he said that, he was no longer nervous as he crossed his leg and stared at Nicole with a look of, "What can you do to me, huh?" Nicole looked back at him and said with a half-smile, "That beating earlier was not enough? He dares to threaten me," she thought. Spectre was immediately spooked. He forgot that Nicole was not the tech nerd he imagined but a very skilled femme fatale. "It was all your fault," he hissed as he thought. "Why did you register all your gender details as male? Even the hotel only has your name. It was only natural that I took you for a guy." As he looked at Nicole's beautiful, contemplative face, Spectre was a little stunned. Although his parents, who would beat him as soon as they saw him, were not kind to him, they still taught him what they needed to. Hence, he had seen plenty of pretty girls before. Nevertheless, he still could not help but get lost watching Nicole's face. Her beautiful eyes had a natural brilliance to them. The light in her eyes was clear yet sharp, as if it could pierce through a person's heart, causing everyone under her gaze to feel a little numb. It hurt, but still, he could not help but look at them. Spectre lowered his head, a faint tinge of confusion floating in his eyes. With Nicole being this skilled, will I be a burden if I follow her? He pursed his lips at the thought of this. The fork in his hand stopped moving. Although he was very hungry, he had lost his appetite. Seeing that he was not eating, Nicole frowned a little. "Eat up." After that, she took her phone and walked out as she made a phone call. "Book 2 tickets to the nearest airport to Nottingbrook State, and then get a car to pick me up." It was Friday today, and after some thoughts, she sent a message to Ms. Emerson to ask for leave for the afternoon session. After that, she returned to the room and looked at Spectre's still entranced face as she said, "Eat up. Come with me once we're done eating." Spectre was surprised when he heard that as he turned to Nicole. When she saw the smile on his small face, the coldness in her eyes slowly faded away. She patted his head and picked up her cutlery as she started eating as well. The dishes here are not bad. Knowing that he could go with Nicole, Spectre looked up and once again had the desire to talk with her. Not as good as the cook at my place. As he said that, he looked at Nicole with eyes full of expectation that she would continue to ask more questions. Nicole did not follow his wish but instead wiped the corner of her mouth. "If you're done, let's go." Spectre responded with some dejection. He thought that Nicole would be curious about him during their first meeting, but she was not as excited as he was. To him, Lucifer was both his master and his friend. She was a legend among hackers and was the most difficult peak for him to climb. Now that he had finally met her, he was naturally very excitable. Nicole took him downstairs as he said, somewhat begrudgingly, behind her. "Nicole, why aren't you interested in me at all?" When Nicole heard what he said, she did not turn back but instead said, "I thought you were hoping that I wouldn't ask." After all, when the two were on missions, they had never divulged any of their personal information. It was like a tacit understanding without words. Not asking each other's true details was the rule that both Lucifer and Spectre would abide by beyond the screen. Thinking that since Spectre had come to look for her, Nicole turned around and looked at him as she said, "However, I've already got your information earlier on." It was not only just his information. If Nicole really wanted, she could dig out details of his ancestors as well. However, out of respect for his privacy, Nicole did not look at much of it but instead just simply took a glance at his real name. Looking at the tongue-tied Spectre, there was a rare tinge of laughter in her voice. "Hello, Zeke Guzman." Zeke looked at Nicole in a daze, seemingly unable to react. It was only when Nicole had drawn a distance from him that he quickly followed. Nicole, wait for me." It was the weekend, and after school, Snow and Rain were picked up by the car sent from the Riddle family. Snow was still carrying a thermos container with her, with a grim expression on her face. She had originally planned to give this to Harvey, but after waiting until everyone was gone at the bottom of his unit, someone told her that Harvey had taken leave for today due to some emergency and did not come to school. When she remembered that Harvey's phone was turned off when she called him, her grip upon the container tightened as she smiled at the person and thanked him for telling her that before leaving embarrassedly. Harvey would never tell her what he was up to. Fortunately, he still spoke up for her before Mr. Wyant's. That meant he cared about her, and that was enough. Snow tried to calm herself that it did not matter, but the moment she got into her room, she smashed the thermos container into the ground, shattering it into pieces. The hot soup splashed out, staining the majestic carpet with blotches of stain. Rain was shocked by Snow's sudden tantrum and immediately asked, "Snow, what's the matter?" Snow glanced at Rain. She had no reason to vent at her sister, so she said softly, "I'm fine." "How are things between you and Gary?" The Finley family was also one of the elite families of San Joto, and Rain had always been proud of the fact she was close to Gary. But recently, Gary had been using the excuse of being busy with his revisions and rejected her countless invitations. Thinking of this, even Rain wore a grim look as she hissed, "Gary is particularly cold to me of late. It's all Nicole's fault. What should I do, Snow?" She had no idea that Harvey's attitude towards Snow already had Snow at her wit's end. She thought that her sister's relationship with Harvey was still good, so she wanted her to give her some ideas. However, Snow, too, was having a headache. She kept telling herself that Harvey still cared for her, yet there was inexplicable anxiety in her heart. Harvey did not acknowledge her at all. He had warned her against being delusional. Thinking of this, a grim glint appeared in her eyes, but she still comforted Rain as she said, "Gary might really be distracted by his studies. After all, Nicole had made such a proclamation and placed all the pressure on him. Even if he says nothing, you must show understanding, okay?" When Rain heard that, she felt it made sense, and so she nodded, "Yes, Snow." Snow then continued, "Ignore Nicole. What Grandpa is focused on is our results. You must maintain first place in the exams this month, and don't let it slip. We'll then have a way to chase Nicole out. Once Nicole no longer has the backing of the Riddle family, she will be nothing. Let's see how she seduces someone then." Rain nodded. Nicole is a nobody and only has the Riddle family as her backing. If we can get Grandpa to disown her, then it will be impossible for her to have a place in San Giotto. Soon, a servant asked both of them to go downstairs for dinner. Both Snow and Rain looked at each other and clearly saw the intent in each other's eyes. Nicole must not be allowed to remain in the Riddle family. It will be the weekend tomorrow, and as usual, the 4 sons of the Riddle family will bring their children back for dinner. Yet, when Mr. Riddle Sr. came downstairs, he did not see Nicole or Chloe. Everyone was already at the dinner table, and he could not help but let out a dissatisfied frown. He looked toward the room, and Damien and Miley immediately said respectfully, "Father, Chloe had recently gotten an invitation from a director, and she is still filming in Nottingbrook State. She'll only be back around next week." When Mr. Riddle Sr. heard that, only did his expression soften. He looked at his quiet grandson, Everett, sitting by Damien's side as he said, "Everett, what is it like in the company?" Everett bowed with head low, hiding his expression away from Mr. Riddle Sr.'s sight, yet the latter could hear his respectful voice. "Grandfather, I've learned many things from Father, Uncle Dylan, and Uncle Dexter. But there are still many things I don't know yet, and I'll work hard." Seeing him having such a positive attitude, Mr. Riddle Sr. nodded with satisfaction. "Keep this attitude up." After that, he looked dimly at Daniel, his voice rumbling. "Daniel, where is Nicole? Why isn't she back? Why hasn't she been coming back to the Riddle family house?" He also wanted to ask why Nicole was at the Rogers family mansion and why was she not back this weekend. Daniel immediately responded, "Father, Nicole had been studying at school for the exam, and she is probably late today. I'll give her a call. Please calm down." As they said that, Daniel and Gloria quickly called Nicole, but her phone was unexpectedly turned off. As she was a movie star, Chloe's situation was understandable. Nicole, on the other hand, had not even secured her place within the family, and she did not even deign to come back. Even if the old man were to stand up for her all this while, he would still be unhappy about it. The two looked at each other, and sweat started to come down from their foreheads. Both Samuel and Spencer too anxiously gave Nicole a call. They had not seen their little sister much this week and thought that they could have a nice chat with her today, but it turned out that she did not return home at all. Even the usually steady Sean had a worried look in his eyes. Nicole's behavior, be it intentional or not, it's tantamount to an affront to Grandpa. We hear nothing about her during our family dinner, which is held once a week, and she is absent without notice. This must be an affront to his authority in Grandpa's eyes. At this moment, Mr. Riddle Sr.'s face was so grim one could wring the bitterness out of it. Seeing this scene, Nora was gleeful. Although she did not know why Nicole did not come back, when she saw the old man being dissatisfied with Nicole, she was happy. At this moment, Rain took the opportunity and said, "Grandpa, Nicole straight up refused to speak to Snow and me at school, as if she can't be bothered with the Riddle family. She even got along with the bully from the neighboring school and did not focus on her studies. She isn't studying hard like what Uncle Daniel said." Snow waited until Rain was done before she spoke. "Rain, don't say that. Perhaps Nicole was held back by something." Before Snow was done speaking, Karen sneered, "Snow, you don't have to speak for Nicole. The fact she did not come back today proved everything. It does seem like we are nothing to her." Dylan, too, frowned. Did Nicole really think herself a big shot or something? She isn't even assured a place in the family, so what's with the posturing? Preston had his headphones on and could not be bothered to participate in this crusade against Nicole. However, his character on the phone had already died 5 times in a row, and he tossed his phone aside somewhat irritably. Just as he was about to say something, Damien suddenly spoke. "Enough, stop it." Miley looked at her husband, too, not understanding why he suddenly spoke up for Nicole. Even Dexter looked at his brother. Dylan was just angry about that. Emma looked at Dexter too. She had always kept her tongue and only said a sentence. "Listen to Damien and stop it." Dylan looked at his elder brother with some dissatisfaction, not understanding why the latter suddenly became neutral. Everett, on the other hand, gave his father a thoughtful look. Daniel gave Damien a grateful look and wanted to give Nicole another call. "Father, Nicole might be on her way. Let's wait Mr. Riddle Sr. said with a gloomy face. "No need. Since she isn't willing to come back here to eat, there's no need to wait for her." It seemed like he had spoiled Nicole a little too much, so much so that she became so defiant. He angrily knocked his walking stick onto the ground as he hissed coldly, "Ignore here. Tell the cook to serve the food." As soon as the words left his mouth, some were elated, some were worried. Aside from Preston, everyone from Dylan's household wore a look of surprise on their face. They had long disliked Nicole, especially Snow and Rain. They thought, now that Nicole has totally fallen out of favor with the old man, without the backing of our family, she won't amount to much now. Nora was pleased, but Daniel, Gloria, and Sean were all anxious. They wanted to say something to Mr. Riddle Sr., but he simply just waved them off. No need to say anything else. This is Nicole's own choice. After he had heard from the servants that Snow spoke with Harvey and helped the Riddle family, he was slightly more biased toward Snow. Recently, because of Nicole, he had been paying less attention to them, and it was probably time to take good notice of Snow now. Hearing what Mr. Riddle Sr. had said, Damien frowned a little as he glanced silently at the latte. He felt that the old man was still more partial toward Nicole and that what the old man said was just out of anger. At this moment, Miley's phone suddenly vibrated as Chloe replied. Miley immediately took out her phone. Chloe was her most valued daughter, and she had been pouring everything she had into Chloe. Chloe, too, had never disappointed her before, as she was so brilliant it was blinding. Chloe was not only impeccably beautiful, but her temperament, speech, and capabilities were also first-rate. She was proficient in everything from piano, chess, and the likes. Moreover, she was picked by a director at a very young age and embarked on the path to stardom she had laid out for her. Chloe's message was probably pinned, and when Miley picked up her phone and saw the message in it, she said elatedly, "Chloe said she has a chance to get the ambassadorship for J.J. Johnston Group." As soon as she said that, everyone looked at Damien's household in surprise as a look of envy appeared on Dylan's face. Karen then said in disbelief, "Miley, what are you on about? Chloe is at most a second-line star. That is the J.J. Johnston Group, you know. How did she get to be their brand ambassador?" The J.J. Johnston Group was the true leader of the business world. They had only come in from abroad 3 months ago and had already monopolized more than 70% of the domestic market resources. The group was so powerful that domestic businesses simply could not go against them. The leaders of this group were very mysterious, and their circle would never come into contact with them at all. With no dues present, they had no way to even try to flatter those people. Yet, Chloe did the unthinkable and got her hands on the ambassadorship for Johnston Group. Miley proudly lifted her chin without even giving Karen a glance. Her daughter was capable, and it could not be helped if Karen got jealous. Mr. Riddle Sr.'s expression brightened somewhat as he looked at Miley in surprise. "Is it true?" Miley nodded. "Father, you should know that Chloe will never say something she does not have confidence in. If she said there's hope, that means it's almost certain." The thought of Chloe actually giving her such a raise in prestige this time, Miley was extremely proud. Damien had snapped back now. As he looked at his wife, the worries in his heart disappeared. If Chloe could get the ambassadorship from J.J. Johnston Group, then he had no need to be afraid of the influence of Snow and Harvey. After all, Chloe was no pushover either. "Father, once Chloe comes back, we'll get her to tell us all about the matter with J.J. Johnston Group." Mr. Riddle Sr. also nodded. He did not expect Chloe to be so capable. With both the daughters from his eldest and second son being so outstanding, Mr. Riddle Sr. turned his gaze toward Daniel. This son of his was weak since he was a child. His frailty aside, he too was unambitious, so Mr. Riddle Sr. did not pin any hope on him. Although Nicole knows Mr. Ellison, it was simply not enough. As he thought of this, Mr. Riddle Sr.'s expression turned a little gloomy. "Daniel, you should probably look after Nicole. Your brother's children are developing well, and Nicole should also have something to show." However, before he could finish, the door was suddenly opened hurriedly by a servant. With him being interrupted mid-speech, Mr. Riddle Sr. looked at the servant at the door with a displeased look. "What are you doing in such a panic?" The servant could not be bothered with his anger as he quickly added, "Sir, people from the Rogers family are here." For a moment, Mr. Riddle Sr. thought he was hearing things, and so was the rest as they were stunned silly by that family name. Dylan, too, asked somewhat quizzically, "Which Rogers family?" Why would a top elite family like the Rogers personally come to visit our family? The servant wiped off the sweat from his forehead as he said, "There's no other Rogers family in San Joto. Stop asking, sir. Please go out to receive them." As soon as they heard that, everyone was stunned, but Mr. Riddle Sr. reacted the fastest as he stood up with the help of his servant and hastened out with his walking stick in hand. The others looked at each other for a few good seconds before Mr. Riddle Sr. yelled angrily, "What are you lot waiting for? Get out now." With the Rogers family growing rapidly nowadays, they were not a family that an old-time family without any power like the Riddle family could afford to offend. 5 to 6 low-profile luxury cars were parked quietly outside the Riddle family manor. When Mr. Riddle Sr. saw the special license plates, he was sure that these were cars sent by the Rogers family. Mr. Rogers Sr. was being helped out of the car by Sean, and when Mr. Riddle Sr. saw that, he almost fainted. Even Damien, who rushed over, was stunned. Dylan and Dexter behind him did not actually know Mr. Rogers Sr. Christo Rogers and did not understand why their father and eldest brother was reacting like that, but through their expressions, they could guess the identity of the people standing before them. Mr. Riddle St. Quickty took a few steps forward as he said politely, "We didn't know that you were coming, Christo, and we didn't make any preparations." As he said that, he made an inviting gesture as he tried to lead Mr. Rogers Sr. into the manor. Damien also quickly added, "Mr. Rogers Sr., please come in." Mr. Rogers Sr. looked up and saw Mr. Riddle Sr., as he slowly smiled, "Benjamin, you sure know how to hide. How did I not know that your family is so capable?" Benjamin was Mr. Riddle Sr.'s first name. He narrowed his slightly muddied eyes a little as he looked on inquisitively at Mr. Riddle Sr. Mr. Riddle Sr. was stunned when he heard that. He looked at Mr. Rogers Sr. with a puzzled expression. Even his hand stopped moving. "Christo, what do you mean?" Mr. Rogers Sr. had never spoken to him before and would not even deign to be bothered with him back then. For the former to speak with him with such an intimate tone, Mr. Riddle Sr. was, of course, a little flattered. Sean glanced at Mr. Riddle Sr. and noticed that the confusion on the latter's face was not faked. He then lowered his head. It seemed like it was the same as what Harvey had asked him to investigate. The Riddle family did not know anything about Nicole at all. Otherwise, why would the Riddle family hide their relationship with Nicole? Harvey had already deduced something from the conversation between Snow and Rain in the cafe the other day and got him to investigate the link between Nicole and the Riddle family. Sure enough, he found some trails. When Mr. Rogers Sr. asked him about Nicole, he told him about the entire thing without hesitation. However, Sean totally did not expect that Nicole would have spent a long time in Great Oak. He lowered his eyes a little, blocking the look in his eyes. Seeing Mr. Riddle Sr.'s confused look, Mr. Rogers Sr. was unhappy the latter was playing coy as his expression turned cold. "Benjamin, this is too much. You can hide her back then, but not now. Call her out now." Coming out of the car was the biggest respect that Mr. Rogers Sr. gave the Riddle family, and it was only because of Nicole that he continued to be so gentle. Otherwise, the Riddles would have never been qualified to speak with him. He did not move and did not intend to enter the manor at all, as he only wanted to come and take Nicole away. Mr. Riddle Sr. got even more confused as Dylan behind him interjected. "Mr. Rogers Sr., are you looking for Chloe? She is not here today." Everyone suddenly showed a look of understanding, and they were basically sure that Mr. Rogers Sr. was looking for Chloe. It was because, in terms of possibility, only Chloe had any trace of connection with the Rogers family. Although Miley was a daughter of the Rogers branch family, she was not outstanding, but her daughter was indeed much more valued by the branch family and was called over to stay with them often. So, they thought perhaps Mr. Rogers Sr. had met her then. That was the most definitive answer in the hearts of most of the Riddle family. Miley too thought of this, and she immediately looked at Mr. Rogers Sr., her eyes full of tension and anticipation. If the Main family really took a liking to the brilliant Chloe, then the lifelong dream of her parents would be completed. The reason the Branch family was abandoned by the Main family was that they had crossed the Johnston family more than 10 years ago. Back then, they were the third household of the Rogers family and had now fallen to the rear end of the great families of San Joto. So, their biggest wish was to please the Johnston family and return to the Rogers family once again to live the high life. If Chloe could accomplish this in advance, then it would be no different than striking the jackpot for Miley and the rest. But the reality was fated to disappoint Miley, as Mr. Rogers Sr. got even more confused when he heard the name Chloe. Who is Chloe? Immediately after, a trace of impatience appeared on his old, weathered face. Stop wasting time. Hand her over now. Seeing that Mr. Rogers Sr.'s expression had turned grim, the Riddle family was so scared they dared not move. They did not expect the person he was looking for was not Chloe. Mr. Riddle Sr. gritted his teeth as he said, "Christo, we have no idea who are you looking for. Please do tell." When Mr. Rogers Sr. heard that, he was about to lose his temper. He did not believe the drivel coming out of Mr. Riddle Sr.'s mouth and thought they just did not want to tell him where Nicole was, and his expression was somewhat menacing in an instant. "Anyone who dares to prevent me from living longer will pay the price." After learning about Nicole's connection to the Riddle family from Sean, Mr. Rogers Sr. could not wait a moment longer. It was out of his status that he waited until night to come to the Riddle family manor, hoping that the Riddle family would give him a satisfactory response. Yet, the Riddle family dared to make a fool out of him. Mr. Rogers Sr. looked on at Mr. Riddle Sr., a cold glint appearing in his eyes, and just as he was about to say something, the Riddle family was ready to weather a storm of fury, and who knew that Sean whispered a couple of things to the furious Mr. Rogers Sr., and he strangely calmed down. Mr. Rogers Sr. looked at everyone in the Riddle family and calmly said, "Benjamin, is everyone in the Riddle family here today?" Mr. Riddle Sr. nodded without fully comprehending. Aside from Chloe, everyone else was here. Mr. Rogers Sr. finally gave Mr. Riddle Sr. a look with a half-smile before bursting out in laughter as he went back to the car. The high-performance cars immediately drove off, leaving the Riddle family a face full of exhaust fumes. Everyone in the Riddle family looked on, stunned at this scene, not understanding what Mr. Rogers Sr. was up to. He came looking for someone, and he left because our family was not able to hand that person over? Dylan then spat angrily. The Rogers family think they are big shots, aren't they? What is this? Did they call us out just to humiliate us? Karen, too, looked on angrily at the direction the Rogers family cars had left. Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.